I want to know what's incompetent.
No. I think Pete Hegseth is incompetent.
Why?
I think
what's happening?
Because he has an inability to tell the truth.
What did he say? What did he say that was false?
Because we know what happened.
No, we don't. They're investigating.
Well, I mean, look,
Wait a minute, whoa.
Hold on.
I want all of you all to go out on a limb right now.
What you just heard is Bakari Sellers on CNN reacting to this. Video evidence showing a U.S. Tomahawk missile striking an Iranian Navy base right next to a school. 168 children dead, 14 teachers dead. And we're going to see exactly how Trump and his administration responded to this. I have thoughts. Let's get into it together.
Tonight, more evidence that the U.S. was likely behind the strike on that school in Iran. Iranian media says that it killed at least 168 children and 14 teachers. This video shows what experts say is a U.S. Tomahawk missile striking an Iranian Navy base right next to that school. The same day, the school was struck. This weekend, President Trump insisted it was Iran who attacked the school. And today, he appeared to somewhat back off that claim, but he still suggested that it could have been Iran.
I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, that. Whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic, it's sold to other countries. But that's being investigated right now.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
But experts tell CNN the Tomahawk missiles are not generic. And while other countries like the United Kingdom and Australia do possess them, Iran does not. But Pete Hegseth is striking also a very different tone from the president on this story. Listen.
Well, we're still investigating, and that's where I'll leave it today. But what I will emphasize to you and to the world is that unlike our adversaries, the Iranians, we never target civilians.
There was a report late in the week from 2 officials that it was likely U.S. involvement. Is that report false?
I've already said we're investigating.
If you could tell the American public it definitively was not us, you would tell us, wouldn't you?
I would say that it's being investigated, which is the only answer I'm prepared to give.
It is a question whether they would tell us, because the president acknowledged in his comments today that he didn't know what happened. I have questions about why that is at this stage. But also, then he spins this whole false narrative about it could have been anyone, including the Iranians, because everybody has Tomahawks, when that's very much not true. I mean, if you're anyone listening to that, how can you believe that they are interested in getting to the truthful answer here?
Okay, so you just heard Trump say that Tomahawks are generic. Other countries have them. Maybe Iran bombed their own school. And Sabrina Singh just said out loud what everybody is thinking. He's spinning a false narrative. Iran does not have Tomahawk missiles. That's not complicated. That's just a fact. And the President of the United States is sitting there suggesting maybe they do. I mean, come on. You just heard it yourself.
Well, I will not agree with Pete Hegseth that often, but I think he did give the right response in that interview that this is under investigation. It does have to be looked at. And because when something goes under investigation, especially by the Department of Defense, you have to let the investigation play out, even if there is definitive video. And I think that is important that he acknowledged that. I will say that when I was at the Department of Defense under Secretary Austin, we had a center of excellence that mitigated civilian harm. That was an office that was basically been completely gutted by Secretary Hegseth by I think like 90% to be an investigation.
Why is Trump misleading about it? Because he is misleading about it.
But I hear you. Lloyd Austin was former Commander General of CENTCOM, 4-star general. Yep. Pete Hegseth, Fox News host.
Yes, very different resumes.
Very different resumes.
Decorated military.
Very different resumes.
Decorated
there
military.
Is no one.
Can you not acknowledge that the man served?
The man served. Yes, the man served. He
highly decorated.
Not in combat.
Not in combat.
Hegseth?
He wasn't in combat.
Iraq and Afghanistan.
I mean, the man served our country.
And he, I think, had a Bronze Star for his
But
service.
my point that I want to get back to is that there is a level of competence that the American public is thirsting for that they are not getting from Pete Hegseth. And we're seeing that. When he is up there.
And transparency.
Transparency. That's all we want. We're talking about 160 children that were killed. All we want is an honest answer that comes from you and the President of the United States. This isn't politics. This isn't Lindsey Graham versus Cory Booker. This is just tell us what we're doing. We have 7 soldiers who've died. We have 160 children who've died. We understand that this is the fog of war. However, we want a level of competence from Pete Hegseth that we're not getting.
I do think that we are
What
going
is
to
incompetent
know.
about this military operation, in your opinion, in your expert opinion?
I don't. First of all, I never served, and let me
You're
start
quick
by
to say
saying
this
that.
is incompetent.
No,
I want to know
no,
what's
no,
incompetent.
No. I think Pete Hegseth is incompetent.
Why?
I think
What's happening?
Because he has an inability to tell the truth.
What did he say? What did he say that was false?
Because we know what happened.
No, we don't. They're investigating.
Well, I mean, look, there is.
Wait a minute,
I think, hold on.
No.
Hold on.
I want all of you all to go out on a limb right now and tell me that the United States, even during the fog of war, did not kill those kids. Tell me they didn't.
I don't know. They're investigating it, and I'm willing to abide by the results.
I do think,
as she said, that's the right answer.
It is fine and important for there to be an investigation. I actually think Major Garrett's last question might have been the most important
question,
which is, if the investigation does find that we are responsible,
would you ever know?
Would you tell us?
Because
I think that's what, to me, when I think about the United States military and how we act on the world stage, that is one of the main things that makes us different.
Right. And I think that right now we have to assume, and I'm going to assume, that the U.S. military, because the level that these investigations are handled is like nowhere near any political thing. My thing, I believe that the U.S. military will conduct a very fair and thorough investigation, and they will come up with the answer. I looked at the imagery myself. I think the answer is going to be that we did it, but I don't know, because I'm just looking at imagery, right? If the military investigators come out with that as the answer, if they do not tell the truth at that moment, if they suppress that, we know we are in a completely different ballgame.
I don't think anybody has faith that Pete Hegseth will stand in front of a camera and say that we did this.
But mistakes happen in war.
Okay, so Scott Jennings just asked Bakari, what exactly is incompetent here? And Bakari's answer is exactly right. It's not the operation, it's the lying. Because you just heard Sabrina Singh say it. When she was at the Pentagon under Secretary Austin, they had an office specifically for mitigating civilian harm. Hegseth gutted it by 90%. And then we've got 168 children dead, and nobody will give a straight answer. Scott wants to say mistakes happen in war. And he's right, they do. But the American standard has always been that when mistakes happen, you own them. That's what makes you different. And you just heard that nobody on that panel, not even Scott, is willing to say Pete Hegseth will stand up and tell the truth about this.
All for the same transparency when Lloyd Austin was AWOL. He had his medical issues and was
he
not
wasn't
present.
AWOL. He had a medical issue.
And there was an investigation into that that we released.
She was there.
I was there. I was there. We released not only that investigation, we released about the withdrawal, we released about Afghanistan and Iraq.
But we
released every single investigation, and he took full accountability and responsibility for that.
I think the most important thing Hegseth said, and all Americans need to know and understand this, the difference between us and the enemy, we do not target civilians. When it happens, and it will happen in war, it is tragic and it is not meant to be. The enemy targets civilians. They hide behind civilians. They fund people who set up bases in hospitals so that civilians are in the way. That's not what we do. An investigation needs to occur. All the truth needs to be told. And we will give transparency to the American people. But there's two parts of this war, our part and the enemy. The enemy targets civilians. Look what they're doing all over the region, firing missiles intermittently.
But the story doesn't end there, Scott. The story is not just we don't target civilians. It is also that when mistakes happen on the battlefield, we take accountability for them.
Correct.
That's the important part.
Nobody has faith that this administration.
You're presuming a lot.
Well, no. I mean,
investigation is not over.
Listen, I started by asking the basic question: why is the president of the United States misleading about some basic information about who has Tomahawk missiles and who doesn't? Answer that.
Abby, I think the investigation is still going on. I don't know why he said people have other
so,
countries
and then
have Tomahawks.
why is he saying as if it is fact
so why
when
are you
the
assuming they're not going to
investigation?
be honest with the American people?
Okay, so why is he stating as if it is fact when the investigation hasn't been completed that Iran was responsible?
Look, What we do know?
That's why I'm asking these questions,
Yeah, yeah.
because the
And
president
to
is
Scott's
making
point,
false
what we
statements
do
about
know-
something that is awful.
Yeah, and it's tragic. It's tragic, period. It's an absolute tragedy.
Yes.
We also know that Iran funded people who raped and killed young girls in
Facts.
Israel.
Trust me, I understand that
Facts.
fully. And there is
That's true.
no equivalency between Iran's malignance on the world stage and this. And in fact, it is the opposite of an equivalency. It's actually an insistence on the United States upholding its own standards.
Just have a higher standard.
That's what it is.
We
And
just have
listen,
a-
don't,
we just have a- we
and,
just-
and listen,
we have to,
That's not gonna come
but we
out.
cannot, I say this all the time, you know, when you roll around with pigs, you both get dirty, but the pigs likes it, right? But we cannot drag ourselves down to that level of depravity. And all I want...
We're not.
We're not.
I believe that the American public, when you have soldiers who go to battle, who die, deserve truth and honesty and accountability. And that's all I want. And I'm just saying that from my perspective, one that's naive, country boy from South Carolina, right? I don't believe Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, to be honest, because they can't tell you the truth about simple
Can I just jump
things.
in on what Bakari is saying? Because I take your point on the honesty and transparency into what Abby's saying. It's like, why did the president lie about this? It's so blatant. Like, if Iran had Raytheon technology, that would be a huge problem. I do think that we have to acknowledge here, Raytheon makes the Tomahawks, so I think we have to acknowledge here that Congress has a role to play, and Congress, to the questions about the Secretary's health, the questions about the Afghanistan withdrawal, they also have an oversight committee that can conduct an investigation and can demand records from the department that we also supplied during that time. So I think Congress has a vote.
You know, Laura Ingraham, I think, has been sending a few messages about this directly to the administration, not only saying that there needs to be accountability, it has to be addressed publicly, but also saying that the investigation needs to be wrapped up quickly and addressed head on. I think speed is actually important here, because if you wait for the news outlets to do their sort of layman's investigation, you can at least say I know there's going to be a full picture of this in great detail.
I think she's right.
But
I think
but
that's
the
right.
administration could say more than they're saying now, and they could tell the president to stop misleading. That's the other thing that they could.
And Abby just asked a question that I keep coming back to. Why is the president misleading about basic information? You just heard the panel go back and forth on this. Bakari says Trump is making false statements. Scott says the investigation isn't over. Sabrina says maybe nobody told Trump what the message was. And you know what? That last one might be the most damning of all. Because if the president doesn't know what his own military did, that's incompetence. And if he does know and he's lying about it, that's something much worse. Either way, 168 children are dead, and 7 American soldiers are dead, and the president is out there talking about how Tomahawks are generic. Do you think Trump knew what he was saying? Or was this a breakdown inside the administration? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.